Hey everyone, today I'll be talking about how the attack on the Twin Towers could have been rendered significantly less catastrophic or been avoided altogether had the buildings been shorter. So, the Twin Towers, also known as part of the World Trade Center in New York, first opened in 1973 and stood at a staggering 1,368 feet and 1,362 feet, respectively. Each of these buildings boasted 110 stories and were not only the tallest buildings in the United States, but were the two tallest in the world at the time they were built. The Twin Towers were only planned to be about 80 stories tall, which is still extremely tall, but were changed to be 110 due to office space requirements. Due to their immense size, certain modifications had to be made to the towers to compensate for this. One of these was known as sky lobbies, which had to be implemented because the elevators at the time had difficulty making it to the top floors. So to do this, people had to get off into lobbies around the middle of the building in order to get to higher floors. This was because the elevators at the time could not manage them that well. This proves to be effective for the people at the lower floors, but it was a bit inconvenient for the people at higher floors. The construction of the Twin Towers did not go without criticism, however. In this instance, the sheer height of the Twin Towers created what is known as the Venturi effect between them, which is when wind going at a normal speed enters into a smaller space, as seen in between the Twin Towers. This created much higher winds for pedestrians below between the Twin Towers, and especially in the Tobin Performing Plaza, which is located right between the two buildings. If the towers were not this tall, this would have no doubt been a significantly less pressing problem, as winds would not have been nearly as strong. However, as we all know, on December 11th, 2001, the World Trade Center became the main target of an act of terrorism and was hit by two separate commercial airplanes, one for each tower. This was a horrific act of terrorism that left everyone in shock, as nothing this terrible had happened to the United States since the attack on Pearl Harbor. This devastating attack left nearly 3,000 civilians dead and more than 6,000 injured. At the time of the attack, the United States was caught completely off guard and was completely unprepared to combat an attack at this time. There was virtually no security protocols in place at airports at the time, making the attack easier to pull off. In addition, other important buildings such as the Pentagon and the White House were targeted. So one could argue that the height of the Twin Towers had nothing to do with the fact that they were targeted in the first place. While it is true that the World Trade Center may have been attacked regardless of its size, there is no denying that if the buildings had been shorter, many more lives could have been saved. For instance, the South Tower was hit between the 77th and 85th floors, which killed not only everyone on those floors, but it also condemned nearly everyone on the 25 floors above that. There's still a lot that could have been done to minimize the death toll. Had the Twin Towers been significantly shorter than they were originally built, there's simply no denying that hundreds of people's lives would have been saved that day. While some may believe that it was worth the risk, the fact is that there is simply no replacing human life. Not only would many lives have been saved if the Twin Towers were shorter, but the collateral damage of the attack would have undoubtedly been less catastrophic. Not too long after the towers were hit, both towers collapsed due to the damage that they had suffered, bringing both buildings completely down and damaging other buildings along the way. If the buildings had been, say, 40 stories tall, the overall damage and destruction of the attack caused would have been much less significant. In addition, had the Twin Towers been shorter, they may not have been such an appealing target for terrorists to strike. While there was obviously no real way for the US to see this coming, the Twin Towers would have been undoubtedly less likely to be targeted had they been smaller, therefore there would be less people inside. The attacks on September 11th on the World Trade Center were truly horrific, but I cannot help but wonder how it would have gone differently. While the buildings were tremendous feats of engineering, the risk was simply not worth it, as demonstrated by this terrible event.